Should I roll up my sleeves? Alright, let me roll up my sleeves. Maybe while I'm doing that, I'll do my little spiel. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying. I'll let you know what daf we're studying when I'm done rolling up my sleeves. So let's just kind of put a placeholder on that. Today we're studying Masechta BavaKama. Alright, we gotta finish rolling up my sleeves over here. And then, okay, yeah, come on, sleeve, come on, no sleeve, come on. The people are waiting. Alright, so let me tell you what daf we're going to study today. We're going to study daf, daf lamed, daf lamed beis, the heart of BavaKama. Were you thinking BavaKama doesn't have heart? BavaKama has heart, BavaKama has soul, BavaKama has passion. Babylon Talmud has passion. Okie dokie. Here we go. Let's do it. We're going to start on daf lamed aleph with beis. It's hard for me to tell if this is going to be a long daf or not. It might be. I didn't think it was going to be, but it took a while to review, and basically the way it tends to go is if it takes a while to review, it takes a while to record. But okay, how many mishnayos do we have on today's daf? 1, 2, 3 mishnayos on today's daf. All right, but it's arguably interesting stuff. All right, let's go weiter. All right, lamed aleph from the beis at the Mishnah, about 5 lines from the bottom, maybe 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Zeba b'chaviso, zeba b'koroso, bodododo. So, okay, no. Reuven's walking down the street with his jug, and Shimon's walking in the opposite direction with his beam, and Poshet they make a shidduch, nishba kado shel zeh b'koroso shel zeh, and kaboom, the jug gets shattered by the beam. Potter, the beam man is Potter. Look, at the end of the day, both of them had permission. It's public space. Both of them had permission to be there. Sorry, jug man. Fine. Now, if they weren't walking in opposite directions, but the beam man was in front and jug man was behind, Nishbra Chavis Bekora, but jug man is walking just a little bit too fast, and his jug hits beam man's beam. Potter Balkora, so beam man is Potter. Can we get a better name than beam man? Jug man I feel like is okay. Jug man and Bimo. That's a good name. Jugman and Bimo. Alright, so Bimo is walking in front. Jugman's behind him. Jugman's walking a little too fast. Jugman's jug breaks on Bimo's beam. And, sorry, Jugman, but Bimo is Potter. Now that sounds like a children's book. Was it Jugman's jug and sorry, Jugman, but Bimo is Potter. On Groove, we have some really great illustrators. So maybe we can make a BavaKama children's story. I'm telling you, Babylon Talmud, we're going to have a whole BavaKama universe. A BavaKama gym, of course. And we could, of course, pull an ox out of a pit. And we'll have a BavaKama children's book with starring Bimo and Jugman. A BavaKama universe, mamish. I guess that's like Nezikin, Nezikin is like, that's the real world, Nezikin, okay, Kiddushin and stuff, that's very nice, but BavaKama, that's where the people are. The people are picking up the oxen from the pit. You have Jugman and Bimo. Any one of us could be a Jugman or a Bimo. Ahmad Balkora Chayv. Now, if Bimo stops short and Jugman bumps into him and Jugman's jug breaks, chayiv. So then Bimo needs to pay Jugman. Vim Omar Leval Chovis Amod, but if Bimo says to Jugman, "Hey, Jugman, I'm stopping," Potter. So then Bimo's Potter because Jugman had fair warning. Hoy Bal Chovis Rishon, if Jugman was in front, Ubal Kora Achrin, and Bimo was behind him, Nishbra Chovis Bikora, and Bimo was walking too fast and he bumps into Jugman's jug. Bimo's beam bumps into Jugman's jug. So then Chayiv, Bimo is Chayiv. Vim Omad, but if Jugman stopped short, Bal Chovis, Potter. If Jugman stops short, so then it's not Bimo's fault. Vim Omar Lebal Kora, but if Jugman says to Bimo, "Hey, Bimo, Amod, halt," Chayiv. So then Bimo's Chayiv if he didn't stop. And similar halachas would be if instead of Bimo and Jugman, you have Candleman, Candleman and Flaxman. Sorry, it's about. I think any creativity has gone away from me. The spirit has left me, and I was stuck with Candleman and Flaxman. All right, let's go weiter. Okay, enough of my shtick. Well, as I said, I thought it might be a long daf. If I keep on messing around like this, it could take ages. All right. Says the Gemara, "Ba'amine Rabba Bar Nosin me'Rafunas." Rabba Bar Nosin asks a kasha from Rafuna. Mazik ezishto betashmish hamita ma'u. So if a fellow injures his wife when they are having beer, so what's the halacha? Is he chayiv? So Kevin the Bishus Kovid Potter, do we say, well, since he had permission, he was allowed, they were sleeping with each other, they were both allowed to do it, so he's Potter for the injury. Or he should have been a little more careful. Omale Tanisua. So Ravuna answers, well, look no further than our Mishnah. The first clause in our Mishnah is that if that Jugman and Bimo were walking down the street and in opposite directions, and Bimo's beam bumps into Jugman's jug, so he said that Bimo's Potter because they both had permission to be there. So apply the same perspective here and say, well, since there was permit, they were having bia consensually, they were both allowed to be doing it. So therefore, you should be potter. Rava says, no way, no how. I'll say fakert. Umayar shezeh l'reshusay nichnos, v'zeh l'reshusay nichnos. Naisa kemi shenichnos l'reshus chaveru v'chayev. Zeh she'l'reshus chaveru nichnos lo kol sheken. Or you hear Rava's kavachomer. Rava's kavachomer is that when it comes to an ear miklat. An ear miklat is if somebody kills somebody else by accident, so he needs to go to a city of refuge, and he basically stays there until the Kohen Gadol dies. So now, the example in the Torah is that Reuven goes into the forest to chop some wood, and the blade of the axe goes flying, and kills Shimon. So in that case, so Rava's kavachomer is that if that's the case of Ir Miklat, and we're saying right that he has to go to Ir Miklat, and that's a situation where they went into a forest, right? Each person was allowed to, right? Reuven's allowed to be in the forest as much as Shimon is allowed to be in the forest, and yet we treat it as though Reuven went into Shimon's domain and he hurt Shimon, and therefore he's got to, go to Ir Miklat until the Kohen Gadol dies. So there's a situation where each person kind of went on his own, right? Each person had permission to be there as much permit, right? Each person was just kind of going into, right? Reuven's going into a public space, Shimon's going into a public space, and yet we treat it, right? That when Shimon gets killed, now all of a sudden we treat it as though Reuven went into Shimon's space, and now Reuven's therefore responsible, and he's got to go into Ir Miklat now. So that was a situation where they both went into a space where really at the end of the day it's just a forest. It's neither one's space, yet we treat it as though Reuven went into Shimon's space. In this case, the husband's mamish going into the wife's space, right? So certainly he should be responsible. So again, when it comes to a forest, each one is going into a place that he's right. That's that's his as much as it's the other person's. Nice kemi, and yet when the axe breaks apart and kills Shimon, we treat it as though kemisha nichnas l'shus chaver, as though Reuven went into Shimon's space v'chayev, and Reuven now needs to run and go to the Ir Miklat. So this case of the husband and wife, that he's going to his friend's space, he's going to his wife's space, certainly he should be responsible for the injury. So Elo, but what about our Mishnah? What about our Mishnah, which talks about that Jugman and Bimo, they both had permission to be there, and therefore Bimo's potter. But the difference over there is that both of them were, doing the same thing, right? Both of them were just walking down the street, as opposed to Hacha here, Iu ka'avid ma'asev lo. That he's the one doing the action and she isn't, right? He right? So therefore he is going to be chayiv, as opposed to Bimo and Jugman, right? They're both walking down the street, so they're potter. In this case, the husband is doing the action, and therefore he's the one who's going to be chayiv according to Rave. V'hoksiv v'nichsu anafashos ha'osos mikerev amam, but it says by what's this pasuk by Arias that hanafashos ha'osos, the souls that do these things, i.e. both the boy and the girl, ha'osos, are doing. So hano letarvayu islu iu maisu dekavid. Look, both of them get hana, both of them get benefit, pleasure, and therefore by Arias, both of them are going to be chayiv. But in terms of the actual maise, who's doing more of the action, it is the fellow, and therefore he's going to be responsible according to Rava. How about Keir Rishon Chule? If so if the Baal Keira, the Bimo was first, and Jugman was behind him. So Amr Rish Lakish says, Rish Lakish, Shtei Paris b'Rishus Harabim, if you have two cows in the public domain, Achas Revutza v'Achas Me'aleches, one is squatting there on the side and the other one's walking. Bo'ata Me'aleches b'Revutza, if the walking cow kicks the squatting cow, Ptura, so the owner of the walking cow is potter for kicking the squatting cow, because it's like a double strange situation. First of all, why is that cow squatting in Rishus Harabim, and why is the walking cow kicking? Right, and it's not normal for the walking cow to then kick. So therefore, Ptura, the owner of the walking cow is Ptura. Revutzu b'ma'aleches, if the squatting cow kicks the walking cow, chayeves. So the owner of the squatting cow is responsible. This reminds me, right? The squatting cow kicking reminds me of that dance move at the bar mitzvahs. When I was a young fellow, so at the bar mitzvahs, there was like one kid who did this special dance where he would, I guess, go into the middle of all the people, and he would like squat down, like as if he was like a catcher, and cross his. There's a name, I think, to this dance. He would cross his arms across his chest, I think, and then he would start kicking in all directions. And I guess it was supposed to make the people happy. It's making me happy. So I think of this cow kind of squatting there and kicking in all directions. Should bring the cow to a bar mitzvah. All right, fine, very good. Where are we? All right, where am I? Okay. Okay, here we go. Now, where am I? I'm going to start from the beginning. Here we go. So let's say that our Mishnah is a support for Rish Lakish. If Bimo was leading, Uval Chavis Achrin, and Jugman was behind him, Nishbira Chavis Bikora Potter. If Jugman's jug breaks on Bimo's beam, so Bimo's Potter. Vim Omad Balkora Chayiv. And if Bimo stops short, so then he's chayiv. So we want to say that Bimo stopping short and being chayiv is similar to a squatting cow kicking and being chayiv. That by Bimo, the chirvutzu b'maleches dami is similar to where squatting cow kicks walking cow. V'katani chayiv, we're saying that it's chayiv because both scenarios are considered like not normal, right? Why is Bimo just stopping in the middle of, out of nowhere, stopping short? Why is squatting cow squatting and kicking? V'tizbra, but the Gemara asks, what's going on over here? Hosayue boi, you think that our Mishnah is a support for Rish Lakish? Lo mistayed lo misaye. Not only does our Mishnah not support Rish Lakish, elo mikshonami kasha. It poshit refutes Rish Lakish. It asks a kasha. It creates hardship for Rish Lakish. Because taimo de bo'ato, the reason why squatting cow's owner is going to be chayiv is because squatting cow kicked walking cow. Who's kamimela, but if walking cow, tripped over squatting cow, so squatting cow would be potter, and yet v'amas nisin, and our Mishnah, when Bimo stops short, the mimela that Jugman is just pashut bumping into Bimo who stopped short, so that should be right. So Jugman jumping into Bimo's right, Jugman's jug colliding with Bimo's beam should be similar to walking cow tripping on squatting cow, and we're saying that by squatting cow, it would be potter, right? Squatting cow is only chayiv when it's squatting kicking cow, but squatting stumbling block cow is potter, and yet when Bimo stops short, he's chayiv. So Taka, our Mishnah is a kasha on Rish Lakish. So, and for the Gemara, not necessarily. Masnisin, in our Mishnah, the reason why Bimo is chayiv is because the paska leorcha kishilda, because when he stopped short, he covered the whole road and there was nowhere else to go. That's why Bimo is going to be chayiv. But hacha, in the case of squatting stumbling block cow, his owner is her owner is going to be potter, because Kevin de Rava bechad gisa, since squatting stumbling block cow was squatting on the side of the road, iboi la lisaguye beidoch gisa, so walking cow should have walked on the other side of the road, and therefore that is why squatting stumbling block cow is going to be potter for being a squatting stumbling block cow. So let's say that the Seifa of the Mishnah supports Rish Lakish, the Katani, that it says, Hoyabal Chavis Rishon, if Jugman was leading, Uval Kora Achrin, and Bimo was behind Jugman, Nishbira Chavis Bikora, if Jugman's jug got broken by Bimo's beam, Chayiv, so Bimo is going to be Chayiv. Ve'im omad bal chovis, and if Jugman stopped short, potter, bimo is going to be potter. Ve'hacha dich me'aleches birvutza dami. This scenario is similar to the me'aleches birvutza, right? Because it's just kind of walking normally kind of thing, right? That we said that if me'aleches birvutza, so we said that if the me'aleches, right, if walking cow kicks squatting cow, so we said that it's potter. And here also we're saying that if Jugman stops short, so bimo is also potter. Vikatoni, potter. We're saying potter. So the Gemara says, well, it's not a good proof because masnisin tichi orche ka maske, but they're different, right? The walking cow kicking squatting cow is different than bimo bumping into a Jugman who stopped short, because masnisin in our Mishnah tichi orche ka maske, that our Mishnah, look, bimo is just walking normally, right? So therefore he's potter. But hacha, I could say that in the case of Rish Lakish with a walking cow kicking squatting cow, where Rish Lakish says is potter, but I could argue Amarle that let the owner of squatting cow say to walking cow's owner, okay, granted, I get that I'm in Rishus Harabim, and if you would have, tripped over me, right, if you would have stepped on me, so then you would be potter. But you can't just kick me, right? So meaning in our Mishnah, when bimo bumps into Jugman, so bimo is just walking normally. But I don't necessarily know that in a situation where walking cow kicks a squatting cow, that should necessarily be potter. All right. Fine, very nice. Alright, moving on to the second Mishnah of today. Shnaim shayu mahalchin b'rishus harabim. Two people walking in Rishus Harabim. Echad rotz ve'echad mahalich. One of them is running, one of them is walking. O shayu shneim rotzin, or even if both of them were running, or if both of them are running. V'ziku zezeh, they damage each other. Shneim piturin, they're both potter. Okay, so you have two people in Rishus Harabim. One's running, one's walking, or both of them are running. They hurt each other. They injure each other. They're both piturin. Says the Gemara, Masnisin lo ki Isi ben Yehuda. Our Mishnah seems to be unlike Isi ben Yehuda. The Tanya, Isi ben Yehuda, Omer says Isi ben Yehuda, Rotz chayav mipnei shehu mishuna. That Isi ben Yehuda says that if you have one person who is running and one person who is walking, the runner is going to be chayav because he's mishuna. He's doing it the walker is walking, but the runner is doing something, I guess, different, and he's going to be chayav for that. Umode Isi be'erev Shabbos ben Ashmashis, but Isi ben Yehuda does admit that if we're talking about erev Shabbos ben Ashmashis, erev Shabbos after Shkia, and he's running show potter, then he would be potter. Even if the person running injures the person walking, the person running would be potter if it's erev Shabbos ben Ashmashis. Mipnei sharatz bershus, because he's running with permission. Amr Rabbi Yechanan, says Rabbi Yechanan, Aloche ki Isi ben Yehuda, that the aloche is take like Isi ben Yehuda. The aloche is like Isi ben Yehuda, that in general somebody who's running, who injures somebody who's walking would be chayv, but in erev Shabbos he's potter. Umiyamar Rabbi Yechanan hachi, would Rabbi Yechanan really say that the aloche is like Isi ben Yehuda? Ve'amar Rabbi Yechanan aloche kistam Mishnah, but of course we know that Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, although we did see maybe Masechta Gittin, we saw somewhere that actually it's not so. There was, I think, Rabbi Chia bar Abba maybe didn't necessarily agree with this. But generally speaking, and this is a pretty well-known concept, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, halacha is kistam Mishnah. That if you have a stam Mishnah, an unattributed Mishnah, just the Mishnah just says a halacha, so that's the halacha. V'tanan, and we learn in our Mishnah, echad rotz ve'echad mahalach. If you have a fellow who's running and a fellow who's walking, or Shayushneim Ratzin, or they were both running, Pturin. So why would Rabbi Yochanan say that the halacha is like Isi ben Yehuda, that the fellow who's running is chayav, if we have a Stam Mishnah that says that he's potter? So Masnisin be'erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. Well, our Mishnah is actually an erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes, when the runner is allowed to run, and that is why he's potter. Mimai, and how do we know that our Mishnah, when talking about a runner and a walker, is an erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes? Midiktani o shayushneim ratzin peturin. Well, or if both of them were running, then they're peturin. Hasulamali. Why do I have to say that if both of them are running, they're peturin? Hashta echad ratz vechad mahalech potter. In a scenario where one of them is running and the other one is walking, the runner is potter. So the shneim ratzin mibaya. Obviously, then if both of them are running, so then they're both going to be potter, right? If in a scenario where one of them is running, the other one's walking, the runner is nonetheless potter. Certainly, if they're both running, they're potter. So elachi kama. Rather, this is pshat in the Mishnah. Echad ratz ve'echad mahalech potter. If one of them is running and the other one is walking, he's potter. Ba'amed v'murm, when be'erev Shabbos ben hashmashos, davka if it's erev Shabbos ben hashmashos. Ava b'chol, but if it's during the week, echad ratz ve'echad mahalech, in a scenario where one's running and the other's walking, chayav, the runner is going to be chayav. Shneim ratzin, if both of them are running, well then afilu b'chol p'turin, even during the week they're p'turin. Amar Mar, we said earlier, umode isi be'erev Shabbos ben hashmoshes shu potter. So of course we said that erev Shabbos after shkia, before tzeitzah kochavim ben hashmoshes, he would be potter if he's running mipnei sheraz b'shus, because he's running with permission. Be'erev Shabbos my b'shusika. Now tell me more. What is this erev Shabbos ben hashmoshes? There's permission. Why is the permission during erev Shabbos ben hashmoshes? Kid Reb Chanina, like Reb Chanina, the Reb Chanina. This is Reb Chanina. Bo v'neitze likras kala malkusa. Let us go out towards the bride, the queen. V'amrila likras Shabbos kala malkusa. Let us go out to Shabbos, the bride, the queen. Rabbi Yanai misatef v'koi. Rabbi Yanai would wrap himself, I guess maybe in a talis, and he would go v'omer, and he would say, boi kala, boi kala. Come bride, come bride. Very, very cool. Says the Mishnah, Hamvakeh b'shus harabim, v'hizik b'shus hayachid, b'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus harabim, b'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus hayachid acher chayev. Uwa. Third Mishnah of the day. Let's read that again. Hamvakeh b'shus harabim. A fellow is chopping wood in a public domain. Mamish, public domain, chopping wood. All right. V'hizik b'shus hayachid, and some wood goes flying into somebody's private domain and causes damage, injury. B'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus harabim, or he's in a private space and he's chopping wood, and some wood goes flying into the public domain. B'shus hayachid v'hizik b'shus hayachid acher, or he's chopping wood in his own yard, but some wood goes flying to his neighbor's yard and somebody gets injured, chayiv. In all of these scenarios, the chopper is going to be chayiv. Says the Gemara, utzricha, and we need all three scenarios, right? Rishus harabim to rishus hayachid, rishus hayachid to rishus harabim, rishus hayachid to another rishus hayachid. The itana hamvakeya rishus hayachid vehezik rishus harabim. Because if we would only have the scenario of somebody who's chopping wood in rishus hayachid and it goes flying into rishus harabim, mishum teshchiche rabim, that he's going to be chayiv, because in the rishus harabim there's like a lot of people there, so if we should have been careful. All right. But if he was in rishus harabim chopping wood and some stuff went flying into rishus hayachid where there aren't really a lot of people there and somebody happened to have gotten hurt, so maybe he's not going to be chayiv there. I'll say no. And if we would say from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid is chayiv, because when he was in rishus harabim he didn't have permit. You can't just chop wood in a public domain. So because he was being foolish initially when he was chopping wood in a public domain, so that is why he is going to be chayiv when there's damage, even though it's in a Rishus HaYachid. But if he chops wood from Rishus HaYachid and the wood goes flying into Rishus HaRabim, the Rishus of it, that look, when he was chopping wood in his Rishus HaYachid, he had permission to be doing so in his private property. Emalo, I might say that he's potter. If we would only have these two examples, right, from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid, from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, Ha mishum deshchichei rabim, right, when from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, because there's a lot of people in Rishus HaRabim, Ha mishum deshelo b'rishus, and from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid, because he was chopping wood without permission. But I might think that if I'm chopping wood in my property and some wood goes flying to somebody else's property, that somebody else's property, there's not a lot of people there, and initially I was chopping wood with permission in my own space, I would say that I'd be potter. Tzricha, we have to say, therefore, in all three scenarios, you would be chayiv to pay for the injuries. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Hanichnos l'chanuso shel nager shelo birshus. A fellow walks into a carpenter's wood shop without permission. He didn't ask permission. He just walks right in to the wood shop of a carpenter. V'nitzo bikas v'tovcha panav ames, and a piece of wood goes flying and kills this intruder. Potter. So the carpenter does not need to go to an Ir Miklat. He doesn't need to run away to an Ir Miklat and stay there until the Kohen Gadol dies. No, he doesn't need to do that. But if the fellow went into the shop with permission, with the carpenter's permission, well then the carpenter is chayiv. My chayiv. What does it mean that the carpenter is chayiv? Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina chayiv b'daled dvarim ufater migalas. He's still potter migalas, right? So if the fellow went into the wood shop, into the carpenter's wood shop, with permission, and the carpenter, right, and then some wood goes flying and the guy dies, the carpenter does not need to go to near miklat. What he's chayav, according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, is that he's chayav b'daled dvar. If the fellow does not die, but he gets injured, so the carpenter will be chayiv to pay for 4 of the 5 things, but not boshes, because boshes would only be if it was intentional. Here it was not intentional. And the reason why the carpenter would not have to go to an Ir Miklat, I hope I wasn't saying Ir Nidachas, an Ir Miklat, a city of refuge, because the carpenter's wood shop is not like the forest that we described earlier, which is where the example of the Ir Miklat is right. That Reuven goes into the forest to chop wood, and the blade goes. I think it's the blade that goes flying and kills Shimon. So in the forest, that is where Reuven needs to go to an Ir Miklat. But a forest is not a carpenter's wood shop, right? The carpenter's wood shop is not like a forest. Ya'ar zeler shuso nichnos v'zeler shuso nichnos, right? In a forest, each person is going in. Each person has the same right to be in that forest. Whereas in this scenario, the visitor is going into the carpenter's space, and therefore these scenarios are not similar. The carpenter's wood shop is not like a forest, and therefore the carpenter is potter. So it says Rava, the Agos Abach changed it to Rabba. I kind of like Rava because it would be similar to like Rava's kind of, he asks a very similar kind of setup with the Kavachomer earlier, but the thing is we're going to ask, Rava's about to ask a kasha on this, so therefore it doesn't really make sense to say it's Rava. Says the Agos Abach that it's Rabba. Let's say Rabba. Rabba was Rava's Rebbe anyways, I don't know. Omar Rabba says Rabba, Kavachomer. Uma ya'ar ze lidaito nichnos v'ze lidaito nichnos. Look, right. So if in the scenario of the forest, where each one went in, and nobody asked permission, right? It's a forest, right? Reuven went in, didn't ask anybody permission. Shimon went into the forest, didn't ask anybody permission. Yet, when that blade goes, I think it's the blade. I'd have to look it up. I think it's the blade goes flying and kills Shimon. The other option is that it's the handle. Maybe it's taka machlokas if it's the blade or the handle. Oh no, I think the shaila is if it's the blade that goes flying or if it's wood that goes flying. Oh, I think maybe that's the shaila. I don't know. Let's just say it's the blade that goes flying because I don't know. But anyways, zenichnas. Where am I? So where am I? So nice a kimisha nichnas ledas chavero. Yet when, let's just say, the blade goes flying and kills Shimon, we all of a sudden treat it as if, he went into Shimon's space with Shimon's permission, or maybe the opposite, right? That Shimon went into Reuven's. Yeah, maybe Shimon went into Reuven's space with his permission, and then he got killed, and now Reuven needs to go to an Ir Miklat. So Ki'ilu, when it came to the forest, even though Be'etzim, both of them went in, nobody asked permission, but we treat it as if Shimon asked Reuven permission to go in, and therefore Reuven is going to be chayiv to go to Ir Miklat. In this scenario, where the visitor mamash asked permission from the carpenter, well then certainly, lo kol sheken, certainly he should have to go to the Ir Miklat. So Ella, on my Rava, rather says Rava, my potter migalus. What does it mean when he's potter from galus? Dilo sagile begalus. It means that he's not allowed to go to an Ir Miklat. This is why Rabbi Yosef of Chanina says that he's potter from an Ir Miklat, mishum dehava le shogeg karv lemezid, because it's borderline intentional. That when the carpenter gives permission to the visitor to come into his shop, and then the carpenter, not knowing that the visitor is visiting, is so irresponsible that wood goes flying and kills the visitor, it's so close to being on purpose, to being intentional, that he's not even allowed to go to Ir Miklat. Ir Miklat is for when it was a mistake. This was not a mistake. This was irresponsible. He's not allowed to go to the Ir Miklat. And that's why Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina says there's no Ir Miklat, because he's not allowed to. It's shogeg karov lemezid. Mosiv Rava. Oh, so now Rava asks a kasha on Rabba. You're saying that shogeg karov lemezid does not go to Ir Miklat, but let me ask you a kasha. Mosiv Rava hosif lo ritzua achas v'meis harei zeh gole al yodo. If you have a fellow shamus of the Bezdin, a whipper, a fellow whose job it is to whip people who are naughty, and so if the whipper whipped, I'm going to stop doing that. Even if the whipper whipped one extra whip, okay, v'meis, and the recipient went to Wellwood, harei zeh gola al yodo, the whipper goes to an Ir Miklat, okay? So the whipper, so let's say the whippee was only meant to get 12 whippings, and the whipper whips the whippy 13, and whippy goes to Wellwood. So whipper goes to Ir Miklat. He has to go to the city of refuge. This shogeg karv lemezid, and this is a scenario where this is close. That's extremely irresponsible. Because whipper must know that, especially we evaluate the people how much they can handle, right? I guess we'll learn that Masechta Makos, also in Seder Nezikin. So we evaluate the person how much he can handle. If he's evaluated that he can handle 12, so certainly whipper must have been aware that giving 13 can kill the guy. So when you give him the 13th whip and whippy dies, so that's like seriously irresponsible. Vikatoni areze gola, and we're saying he does go to an Ir Miklat, even though it seems to have been shogeg karv lemezid. Rav Shimi min Ardoya detoi b'minyon. Says Rav Shimi min Ardoya, look, Whipper messed up in the case. He made a mistake when he was counting. He thought it was 12, but it was actually 13. He made a mistake. Tofach le rove bisandole. Rove, Rashi gives two options. Either he hit Rav Shimi min Ardoya with his sandal, or maybe he hit Rav Shimi min Ardoya on his sandal. Omar le, and he says to Rav Shimi min Ardoya, Otu hu money? What, do you think Whipper is the one counting? But we learn in verse that the greatest of the judges that are there reads out the pasuk, as Rashi says, V'hifla Hashem es makoscha v'gomer. V'asheni monen, the second counts. V'ashlish, the third one, Omer Hakeu, says hit. So we see that Whipper is not the one who's counting. So what are you talking about, Rav Shimon ben Ado? Say Elo Rav Shimon ben Ado. Okay, so rather says Rav Shimon ben Ado, Tita'a Dayana Gufe. Okay, that the judge who is counting made a mistake, but still, Whipper wasn't the one counting. Somebody else was counting. They made a mistake, so that is why Whipper. It's not considered shogeg karv lemezid on Whipper's account, and Whipper goes to the Ir Miklat Meisve. We have a kasha zorik es ha'evin l'shusarabim. A fellow who throws a stone into the public domain, and it kills a person. He goes to the Ir Miklat. This is shogeg borderline mezid. Because a person should have considered that in the Rishus Harabim there are people around, and if you throw a rock into Rishus Harabim, you might kill somebody. And it says that he goes to the Ir Miklat, even though it's shogeg karv lemezid. He goes to the Ir Miklat. So Omer of Shmuel bar Yitzchok says of Shmuel bar Yitzchok besoser es koslo. Well, it's talking about where he's knocking down his wall and throwing the pieces of the wall into Rishus Harabim. Iboile ayune, but still he has to pay attention to what he's doing. Besoser balaylo. Well, he's knocking down the wall at night. But even at night he has to pay attention. Okay, so he's breaking down, he's demolishing his wall during the day, and he's throwing the pieces into the garbage dump. Tell me more about this garbage dump. If it's a place where there's people around, well then it's intentional. Why is he going to the Ir Miklat? And if there are no people around, Rabim Onusu, then he's Onus. So again, why should he have to go to the Ir Miklat? Rav Papa rather says Rav Papa, Lo Tzricha, wait, what? Right, exactly. Right, because we're saying that he has to go to the Ir Miklat. Right? We are? I don't know. Yeah, exactly. He goes to the Ir Miklat. Exactly. It's not shogeg karv lemezid because it's in this garbage dump. Okay, so Amar Papa says, Papa, Lo tzricha ela be'ashba asuya liponus balayla ve'ena asuya liponus bayom. Look, it's a garbage dump where people go to the bathroom at night, but not during the day. And he's demolishing this wall and throwing stuff in there during the day. But there are some people who, if you gotta go, you gotta go. You go to the bathroom there during the day. So mezid lo have, so it's not intentional. Because it's not, generally people don't go to the bathroom there during the day. Onus nami lo have, but he's also not, entirely unexpected to ika de mikra v'yosef, because there are people who do go to the bathroom there. Therefore, in the event that he threw these stones from the wall into this garbage dump over there, and somebody got killed, so it would be considered, shogeg, and you would go to the city of refuge. Rav Papa Mishmei de Rava Masni La Reisha. Rav Papa Mishmei de Rava teaches on the Reisha. Teaches Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina on the Reisha. Right? We had said that we had the situation of the carpenter, right? The carpenter, somebody goes into his shop without permission, and he gets killed, so the carpenter does not have to go to the Ir Miklat. We said that if the person did have to go, if the person did have permission, so then it says that the carpenter is chayiv. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina said on that, we said that it says Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, it means that he's chayiv ba'arba devarim, but he's pater from galus. Says Rav Papa, that Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina is going on the Reisha, when the person went in without, the visitor went in without Rishus, without permission. Okay, so Rav Papa Mishmei Derave Masni La Reisha, Rav Papa Mishmei Derave says that Rabbi Chanina is going on the first part, Anichnos Lechanuso Shal Nagar Shalo Bershus. If this visitor goes into the shop of the carpenter without permission, v'nitzelo bikas, and a chip, some wood goes flying, v'tavchela upon of a mace, and he dies, potter. He doesn't have to go to the Ir Miklat. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina says, Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina chai barba dvarim upotter migalos, that he would not have to go to the Ir Miklat, but if the visitor gets injured, not killed, he would have to pay for these four things. Mandamasni lo aseifa. Mandamasni lo aseifa. So, like we learned it earlier, that Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina says that he does not have to go to the Ir Miklat when there is permission, when the visitor has permission to be there. Kol shekin areisha, certainly in the ratio where the fellow does not have permission to be there, certainly then it would be dissimilar to the forest, and there would be no Ir Miklat there. Uman demasni lo areisha, but according to a Papa who says that the that he does not need to go to the Ir Miklat in the ratio when there was no permission, aval aseifa, but if the visitor had permission to be in the shop, well then came the bershus chayiv galus. Since the visitor was there with permission, therefore the carpenter would have to go to the Ir Miklat in that case. Umichayev galus, but is that really the case, that the carpenter would have to go to the Ir Miklat if the visitor had permission to be there? We learn in a brayso, hanichnos lechanuso shel napoch v'nitzo nitzotzis v'tovchelo upon v'meis patov afilu nichnos b'rshus. We have a brayso that says that if a person goes into the blacksmith, okay, nichnos lechanuso shel napoch, a person who goes into a blacksmith shop, v'nitzo nitzotzis, and some sparks go flying, v'tovchelo upon and hits him in the face, v'meis, and he dies, pater, the blacksmith is pater afilu nichnos b'rshus. Even if the visitor went in with permission, we're saying that he does not have the blacksmith does not have to go to the Ir Miklat. Hochav ma'eskinon. Yeah, but by the blacksmith we're talking about bishul yudin apoche. It was a student of the blacksmith, and that's why the blacksmith does not need to go to the Ir Miklat. But shul yudin apoche lemiktul akai. But what are blacksmith students just disposable? That it's just a blacksmith student. That's why he doesn't have to go to the Ir Miklat. Yeah, but the blacksmith was telling him, "Hey, leave," and he didn't leave. But just because the blacksmith told him to leave, now all of a sudden he can just be dangerous, and if he dies, we don't care. Well, the blacksmith thought that he had left. Well, if that's the case, then what's the difference if it's the student? Anybody who he tells to leave and then they don't leave, but he thought that they left, he should be potter. So acher leisle aim sederabe, hi isle aim sederabe. Yeah, but the difference is that somebody else doesn't. The teacher-student dynamic kind of creates this dynamic where if the teacher says to do something, the student does it. So therefore, when the blacksmith told the student to get out of there, he assumed that he actually left, and that's why he's potter. But somebody else, if he tells to leave and they don't leave, he would be chayiv to go, potentially chayiv to go to the Ir Miklat in that case, because he should have considered that maybe the person did not actually leave. Rav Zvid Mishmei Derava Masni Lo Aho. So Rav Zvid Mishmei Derava teaches Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina, who said that you're chayiv b'dal dvarim on the following case, umatzo prat lemamtzi es atzmo, that when it says that the Reuven goes to chop wood, and then in the forest, and Shimon gets hit, and so he goes to the Ir Miklat. So it's talking about umatza. It's talking about where the blade, the chip, finds Shimon and kills Shimon by accident. Prat lemamtzi es atzmo, to the exclusion of if he stuck out his head, right? Meaning if Ruvain's doing whatever he's doing and the wood goes flying and hits Shimon. Okay, so Ruvain needs to go to the Ir Miklat. But if it wouldn't have hit Shimon, but Shimon stuck out his head and then it hit him, so then Ruvain does not need to go to the Ir Miklat. From here Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Mishayotzu Evan mitachas yodo, that if Ruvain throws a stone, v'hotzi alo es rosho, and Shimon sticks out his head, v'kibla, and gets hit, potter. Ruvain would not need to go to the Ir Miklat. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, potter, and says, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, potter migalus, he does not need to go to the Ir Miklat, but v'chayiv b'arba dvarim, he is chayiv for the to pay for the 4 things, just not boshes. Mandamasni laha, and the Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava, who says that Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina is talking about this case, Kol Shekena Kamaisa. Certainly in the first case, right? It says Rashi, Kol Shekena Kamaisa Nichnos L'chanuso Shonager, that somebody goes into the carpenter's shop. Dechem Dechazye, since the carpenter saw the aisle that he came into the shop, Iboyle Le'ayune, he should have been careful. So then, right, so if you say that in this scenario where Ruvain throws a stone and Shimon sticks out his head, Ruvain is going to be chayiv by Badavarm. Certainly, when the visitor goes into the carpenter's shop, the carpenter will be chayiv if the visitor gets hurt, because he should have been careful. Uman demasni la kamaisa, but the Manda who says that Yosef B'chini is going by the carpenter, avalaha potter legamre. But in this scenario, Ruvain would be potter. He wouldn't have to pay for the 4 items because when he threw it wasn't going to hit Shimon. Shimon stuck out his head. Wow, yeah, that ended up being a big daf. Yeah, it was probably 50 plus minutes. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know. We covered a friggin' ton of ground over here. And we started talking right way back when we were talking about Jugman and Bimo, and then we talked about running and walking and on Erev Shabbos you're allowed to run, which is pretty cool. Right? We talked about the people going out and saying Boikala, and then we talked about Ir Miklat a little bit, which was kind of interesting stuff. So, what do you want me to tell you? That was Daf Lam Beis of Masechta BavaKama. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.